Lix here, sitting in a Luckin coffee shop in Shanghai. Luckin is one of the latest success stories in China's economy. I'll talk about it in a moment. China has been subject to thousands of sanctions and other penalties imposed by the United States since 2016. Over 70 Chinese technology companies have been targeted by Washington. Whole regions, like the Xinjiang Autonomous Region, have been blocked from exporting goods to the US based on unfounded accusations, and hundreds of Chinese government officials have been prohibited from visiting or communicating with US companies. And the economic assault not only continues, but is being relentlessly intensified, along with the so-called allies who are allowing themselves to be used by Washington against their own interests. The Washington-led coercive measures were implemented with the intention of keeping China behind and poor rather than allowing it to rise again. As a reminder, before the British led opium wars against China, which began the century of humiliation, China's economy was strong and self-sufficient, with a trade surplus with European countries. As with Russia, US elites do not tolerate the major competition and are trying everything they can to destroy it. The Chinese fear that the Western powers want to impose another century of humiliation on them, which they want to prevent at all costs this time. But is economic warfare against the Chinese working? Let's take a look. Huawei, the world's leading manufacturer of telecommunications equipment, which previously counted 80% of the world's 50 largest telecommunications companies among its customers and sold its products in over 170 countries around the world, is one of the companies that had to be eliminated. To kill a serious competitor to US corporations, the US government ensured that Huawei no longer had access to foreign microchips and to Western and other markets. As a result, Huawei had to sell Honor, its top phone brand. Sales and profitability plummeted dramatically. Washington nearly bankrupted Huawei. However, as with many other Chinese enterprises that the US attempted to kill, Huawei reinvented itself and re-emerged as China's most prolific high-tech corporation, expanding into new industries such as port automation and control systems and electric vehicles. Here I'm visiting a Huawei automobile showroom in Shanghai. Huawei is currently taking significant market share away from Apple, which was formerly immensely profitable in China. Today, China accounts for 70% of Huawei's revenue. Not only does Huawei produce excellent products and services, but it has also been able to position itself as a national champion of China that serves China's needs. Chinese consumers who have anxiously watched the economic assault by foreign forces on Huawei and countless other Chinese enterprises have taken sides with the underdog, recalling the century of humiliation China had to endure at the hands of foreign powers in the not-too-distant past. There are headlines all over the world about the exodus of investment from China. This is partly due to the fact that foreign investors are afraid of being penalized by Washington. Even Tesla cars manufactured in China and exported to the US are now subject to high US import taxes. Other products manufactured by foreign investors in China are also being targeted. The withdrawal of foreign investment, surpassed even by Chinese investment made abroad, the latter aiming at expanding the customer base for Chinese products, is not the end of China, but merely a reaction to the weaponization of foreign investment and trade by the United States, and far more weightily, the failure of Western companies in the Chinese market. US car manufacturers, which sold millions of cars in China every year and made billions in profits, are no longer competitive and are therefore divesting. The American Starbucks Group currently has 7,300 shops in China and its sales and profits are declining. Does this mean that the Chinese are now drinking less coffee? No, on the contrary. They are simply opting for Chinese brands because they offer more for less money. Luckin Coffee, which are found to offer delicious coffee, is taking market share away from them. Even outside of China, like in Singapore, they are popping up everywhere and competing with Starbucks. Bloomberg reports that Luckin Coffee, and no longer Starbucks, is now the largest coffee retailer in China. That in itself would be remarkable because less than 4 years ago the company filed for bankruptcy, making its comeback even less likely. The turnaround is due in part to the chain's automated shops, low-cost offerings, and innovative beverages that appeal to local tastes. Volume-wise, it offers the same amount of coffee, but at a third of the price of Starbucks, as you can see here. Luckin Coffee is not the only thriving Chinese coffee company. Another example is this Manner Coffee. Of course, Luckin Coffee is just one example from one industry. The same thing happens in many other industries. Chinese consumers are not collapsing. Rather, they are evolving and becoming smarter. And with the increasing xenophobia of Western policies, the Chinese are becoming consumer patriots who will favor Chinese products and services. In 2011, only 15% of Chinese said they would prefer Chinese over foreign brands, but by 2020, 85% said they would prefer Chinese products. Given the increasingly anti-China policies and rhetoric, this percentage is likely to be even higher today. China has by far the largest middle class in the world, which still has high growth potential, so there is still plenty of room for expansion for companies that cater to their needs. However, don't be surprised if Starbucks leaves China one day in the not too distant future. After all, it's what Western China hawks have longed and worked so hard for. It may not hurt the US much if its remaining companies lose the world's largest market in terms of purchasing power parity rather than flawed GDP, as it has a huge trade deficit with China anyway and is not a strong exporter either, unlike Japan, South Korea and the European Union. These US allies will suffer a significant economic setback as a result of backing Washington's strong anti-China measures. Chinese customers will no longer be friendly to them, and this poses a significant threat to the prosperity of their populations, not that of China, whose growing domestic economy accounts for the overwhelming lion's share of its overall economy. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, clicking the like and the subscription buttons, and see you soon in my next video. Goodbye from Shanghai.